This is what we've got to look forward to in today's show.
You know, I've worked 20 odd years as a project manager, so it's a different project. Each book is a different project, but it's still using those same skills.
Welcome to the All Things Books Show, hosted by award-winning best-selling mystery author Dawn Brookes. Publishing has changed beyond recognition in recent years. Join Dawn as she interviews authors, narrators, and many more from across the creative community. This inspiring and informative show is for readers and writers.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the All Things Books Show, and today I've got with me a very interesting author called Cassie Rush. Now that's her pen name, and we'll ask her if she's happy for us to use her real name when we bring her on screen. So let's bring her on and say hello.
Hi Dawn, thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. Can we use your real name?
Yeah, of course, yes. I mean, I write under my real name, and my slightly darker police procedurals and psychological thrillers. I write as Caroline Goldsworthy, and that is my real name.
Okay, so let's just introduce Caroline a little bit. I'll say a little bit about you, and then we'll launch into the interview, and I'll ask you loads of things about yourself. So on Caroline's website, she's a Suffolk-based crime writer. She once had a plan to write a book, and when that goal was achieved, she wrote another, and then another, and it seems to be another, and she can't seem to stop. She's based in Ipswich, Suffolk, but she also spent a year abroad in Elizondo, Navarra. We'll ask her where that is in a minute. She was brought up in Colchester, so she is anyways Essex. She's an official Essex girl, and although she's been known to dance around her handbag, she doesn't have any white stilettos. I take it that's from anyways Essex.
I think it's just a general thing about Essex girls that we're all supposed to have white stilettos.
Yeah. Well, I used to dance around my handbag in my younger
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And she does have quite a lot of shoes and shiny things. So perhaps there's time for the white stilettos yet, is what she says.
Possibly. I'm more of a flowery DMs kind of girl these days rather than white stilettos. I did, when I was 18, have a pair of white cowboy boots with tassels on.
I think I'd go over if I had stilettos.
And that's my problem now. All of the heels have had to go. They've had to find new homes, unfortunately. The knees won't take it anymore.
Not to mention the knees, the feet. Like that, aren't you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, my daughter still wears shoes like that, and I can't stand up in them.
I remember the days. Okay, Caroline, just tell us a little bit more about you to start with.
Okay. So, you know, as I say on my website, I'm an Essex girl. I now live in Suffolk. I really enjoy. I mean, I'm in Felixstowe at the moment, but I'll be moving back to Ipswich in a few days' time. And I really enjoy it down here. Apart from the seagulls are very, very large, and the herring gulls are particularly fearsome as well. I had a burger for lunch today, and it sat by my car and eyed me up. So I was scared, and I put all the windows up because it really was quite fearsome
they
looking.
pinch your fish and chips, don't they?
Oh yeah. I've had a few run-ins with seagulls over the years, in the days when I used to rock climb. I went to university in the early 90s, and I would have been in my early 30s then, and discovered I really enjoyed writing the essays. I enjoyed pulling the arguments together and pulling the words together, and loved it. And of course, then I started doing well with the essays, and that just encourages you. But I'm one of those people, I always wanted to write a book. I knew I had a book in me, but I didn't have the story. I didn't know where the story was going to come from. And then in December in Ipswich in 2006, that's when the story came to me. And that's when I wrote my debut novel.
And was that a thriller? That was your first?
Yeah,
novel?
that's a police procedural. My character is DCI Ronald Carlson, who's a lovely man. I'm deeply in love with him. But sadly, I made him married, which, you know, now on reflection seems like a daft thing to have done. But anyway, he's happily married. And
that's a rarity for a modern DCI.
Well, I gave him the suicide of his daughter as part of his character journey, because a family suicide was something I knew about, because when I was 25, my father killed himself. So I found it quite therapeutic writing about it. But I didn't want him to be sort of, you know, the standard trope that you seem to get with detectives, you know, badly dressed, unmarried, or several times divorced, bordering alcoholic. And I didn't want that.
Gets
for my
a bit
detective.
boring, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there are so many of them about that it does become boring. It becomes just a cliche that everyone sort of backs away from.
Yeah.
But what I also wanted to do with this novel was look at why somebody would kill. You know, why do you get up one morning and think, I'm going to kill someone today? And so that,
assuming it's premeditated.
Yeah. So I decided that I would take it from the point of view of not so much who done it, but why done it. And I take the reader through that whole journey of the little boy as he's growing up and the things that he goes through that make him become a killer. And so, although you know, it's entirely fiction. It's fiction. I made it all up. But there are things within my story that people who do know the Ipswich murderer have said. Yeah, actually, there were things like that going on in the background.
Is that the Ipswich murderer that killed sex workers?
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah.
Just for people who didn't know, because a lot of people are listen to this from abroad.
Oh, right, okay. So, in 2006, 5 young women who were working in the red light district disappeared from the streets, never to be seen again, until their bodies were found a few days later. And there were a total of 5 in a very, very short space of time, which was quite frightening for the residents of Ipswich, and also for Suffolk Constabulary, because the killer escalated so quickly. But they also caught him quite quickly as well, which is, you know, all credit to Suffolk Police, who are the smallest constabulary in the country, apparently.
Wow.
But they do have a tractor.
Okay, so that must have helped.
So you have to have a tractor. Everybody has a tractor in Suffolk. I'm surprised I haven't got one.
For people who don't know, Suffolk is on the southeast.
It's East
England,
Anglia,
just before Norfolk, and it's very flat. Is it similar to Norfolk?
Fairly flat, yeah.
And very.
It's a farming community
and rural. Yeah,
it's rural. There's lots of arable farming. There's some dairy farming. There's some sheep farming, but mostly it's arable. So, you know, about sort of 30-40 miles away, there's a huge sugar factory making British sugar.
Oh dear, which is so bad. So bad. Don't mention sugar.
Doesn't sound too good either.
I want a sugar rush. So tell us a bit more. So this first book, what's the title of that first book?
The title of that is Tangent.
Because somebody goes off on a tangent.
Well, it's that, but it's actually people being on the edge of society, sort of like intersecting with it, but not really being a big part of society, as the sex workers and drug addicts do feel that they're treated like that. I spent in 2010. I spent the summer volunteering for Iceni, which is a drug outreach centre. So I worked in the kitchen, serving, making teas and coffees, made cake. My cake was always very popular, which was nice. Occasionally worked on reception. and just talked to people and listened to their stories, and met some amazing, very strong women. And it was as much their story that I wanted to bring out in Tangent as much as the police team and the killer.
Okay. And then did you write any more in that series?
Yes, I have written a second one in that series, and the third one has just gone off to the editor about a week and a half ago. So the second one is based around a rape in Pamplona in northern Spain. So you said earlier I worked in or lived in Elizondo in Navarra. Pamplona is the capital of Navarra, where the bull run is, and this attack took place at the bull run.
And how did your DCI get out to Spain? What was that all about?
Well, you see, no, I changed it completely. I just make things up.
It's a standalone. Or you changed jobs.
No, what I did was I made it that the character was British, the attackers were British, they come from the town where the detective lives, and the woman came from Bristol, but they are, her alter ego tracks them down and kills them all. One by one in a very unpleasant manner, and that one's called Recompense.
And that's the second.
That's
book.
the second one, yeah.
And your DCI, does he have any authority in Spain?
No, he didn't need to, because
the investigation is in England.
All the murders took place on his patch.
England.
In Suffolk.
Okay, I've got it now. Yeah. Gotcha.
So, and then the third one is I'm calling that one Perdition. And that's based around the historic child abuse in the Ampleforth, I think, is it Ampleforth Priory or Abbey, something like that. Obviously, the people I'm killing in this one are innocent little Catholic priests.
Yeah.
My detective has just got a dog, though, so I think it's probably going to have to live until it's 30.
Yeah, dogs are amazing in the literary world.
In the literary world, yeah, they live forever, don't they? They live nearly as long as the characters.
Well, let's face it, the characters don't age either, do they?
Well, that's hardly.
I mean, look at James Bond; he's still going. Questionable, right? Okay, so you've got 2 books in that series, and one. Have you got a launch date for your third? Is it on pre-order?
I'm just waiting for it to come back from the editor and seeing how much work I've got to do with moving back to Ipswich in the next few days. My head's a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and then I've written a couple of standalones because when I was living in Kesgrave, just on the outskirts of Ipswich, I wasn't very far from Sutton Hoo, as it's called. Most people will possibly be familiar with that now as the story called The Dig, the film called The Dig with Roman Fiennes.
Yeah.
So I did a tour there with a guide, and normally you're not allowed to stand on the mound where the ship was, but with this tour I was, and I was there with a group of people, and the guide was describing the cortege as it came towards. As it came towards where the burial ground was, and it was as if this young woman was there. I could see her. The guide described what the women would be wearing so well. It was as if she was there. So it had a slightly out of body moment, and she wouldn't leave me alone. So I wrote an Anglo-Saxon murder mystery, as you do.
Based in the 1600s?
No, it's Anglo-Saxon, so 600.
I like historical fiction, but obviously I don't go that far back.
It was quite difficult to research, it has to be said.
Yeah. And who investigated murders in Anglo-Saxon days?
I've got no idea. I would imagine that there would have been some sort of sheriff or someone working to the local head man. But in this story, I had the young girl that was accused of the murder of the king, and she fled into the woods. In Anglo-Saxon times, you didn't go into the forest because they were dark and scary places, but she had no choice. She meets a giant who then takes her to meet this witch called Eowyn, and Sinove, Eowyn, and Bedo the giant. They solve the mystery, working together.
Wow.
Yeah, I was quite pleased to get back to the 20th century or the 21st century.
I bet you were. Is it just the one Anglo-Saxon?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly enough going on politically after Eastwold takes over the throne from his father. So there's plenty going on that there could be a second story and possibly even a third. But it took a lot of work. And it's not very popular. People who read it love it, but it doesn't sell well. It was my passion project.
Passion project. We all have one of those.
We all have one of those, don't we?
Yeah. I'm sure we do. So, moving on, there, you said you've written a few standalones. What were the other standalones?
Yeah, I've written a psychological thriller. This was my so the country is locked down. What shall I do now? Book. And it's my first or my fastest ever first draft. I wrote the first draft in about 5.5 weeks, and it is it's a domestic violence, so like gaslighting, and all of that is going on, and the woman is sort of slowly working out what's happening to her. She starts off thinking she's going completely bonkers. And she works it all out. And she works out who's murdered her friend, who's caused all her own accidents, and the hubby, he gets his comeuppance.
Good. Yeah. We like people to be punished. Crime and punishment here. Crime and punishment. We're all about that.
Definitely.
Right. On a lighter note, you now write cozy mysteries. So tell us about Cassie Rush. Cassie Rush is Caroline's pen name. So just remember Cassie Rush for cozy mysteries. Okay.
So in 2019, did one of those DNA tests. I knew I'd been adopted. And my natural father suddenly appeared, through the Ancestry website, and I think it's ancestry.com, isn't it? So through that website, he was able to get in touch with me, and his surname is Rush. Cassie is a sort of a form of Caroline. So my sister always called me Carrie when we were kids. And still does on occasions, but so I just thought, as a sort of a bit of a salute to him, I would write as Cassie Rush, and she's actually now outselling Caroline Goldsworthy. So
Okay, Cassie.
Good for Cassie.
You found your roots.
Definitely.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. So there are 3 of those now. The first one, Raising the Roof, and that was all about raising money for the church roof.
Okay, we don't know anything about the characters, so you're
sorry.
Assume we know nothing.
Yes, sorry. I rattle on and I'm you'll have to corral me better.
We can't get into your head.
Yes, probably
not yet.
As well,
not
it
yet.
Would freak you out. So my main character is called Alina Merricott. She is a part-time vicar and a district nurse, based on a close friend of mine who was a nurse and is still a part-time vicar, and she's now my technical advisor. And I wanted a character that everyone would talk to and everyone would feel comfortable talking to.
Yeah,
and that's where, and I was just walking down the stairs and the name popped into my head. I don't know where it came from or anything, but the name just suddenly popped into my head. And I thought, that's a great name. So the Reverend Alina Merricott, and she has a grumpy Siamese cat called Thalia.
Okay.
And Thalia is the muse of comedy, hence why it's grumpy.
Yeah.
And nobody's noticed. It's
no, I wouldn't notice that go over my head. Like 600s, goes. let's get back to Cassie Rush and and the vicar.
Right. Okay. So I created this character. She has a very snarky, sarcastic, grumpy daughter called Claire, who's now getting a bit older and sort of developing her own personality.
Teenage daughter, or
oh yeah,
going through the horrible teens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's actually a little bit more civilized than my daughter was at the same age.
Okay.
But she's still going through all of that teenage angst. Alina has a secret in her past, but anybody knows is that she's a widow. The truth is, of course, that her husband disappeared rather than and had to be declared dead. She's not been in the village. It's based on a beautiful seaside town in Suffolk called Southwold. Which is very famous for its lighthouse. What I hadn't realised, and my friend Judy, who is my nurse vicar friend, she took me around a lot of Southwold, and there's so much. It's actually really quite big. It's quite spread out.
So your friend is actually a nurse and a vicar as well.
Yeah, she's retired from nursing now. But I think she's still doing a final year as a legacy nurse.
And she's a vicar.
And she's a vicar. She still does services at St Edmund's the Martyr Church in Southwold. And so she took me around. We've met there and had lunch a couple of times. I didn't realise that there was actually a working harbour, which. See, you complained about me fiddling with my microphone. Now we've got dogs.
My dog's having a dream and she's barking at something.
Rabbits. There's lots of opportunities for different accidents to happen. There's a golf course there. There's a huge house which is going to be used in the third one. They have fetes and cake competitions. There's a very old-fashioned pier which I've yet to visit, but I've got a friend coming to stay with me in a few weeks, so we might go and have a wander along the pier and see what's there. So there's lots of different things there going on to give ample opportunity for lots of stories,
which is what you love about Cozy Crime.
Tell
us a little bit about. Well, first of all, tell us the title of that first book.
The first one is called Raising the Roof.
Okay, and I assume that's raising money for a church roof.
Raising money for the church roof, and the arguments and the somewhat heated discussions that go on about the events for raising the church roof. I can imagine,
yeah.
And then suddenly somebody drops dead. But unfortunately, my vicar was on the dance floor dancing. Came back to the table to sit next to the lady, and said, "Oh, you've done really well, Kitty. It's a great event. Blah blah blah." Then somebody walks past and says, "Is she ignoring you, vicar?" "I don't think so." Taps the woman on the arm, and she falls literally off of her perch.
Okay. And the second book in that series, what's that
called? Literary Murder. So this is it's more about, because Southwold has a literary festival. And it also has, I can't think what it's called. It's not Skullduggery, because that's the Stowmarket one. But it has its own Southwold Crime Festival.
Okay.
So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to put the two together and have one of the literary authors being hated by all of the crime authors?
Okay.
So that's what I've done.
Yeah, good. And the third book, which is coming out soon.
It's called On the Stroke of Death, and this is set in the big hall, the new owner of Fairview Hall, and he's deep dark past, and somebody comes out of the woodwork to destroy him.
Very nice. Okay, so we talked a little bit there about your about we almost got onto cozy mystery tropes. So tell us what constitutes a cozy mystery as opposed to a thriller.
I think it's more that the sleuth tends to be an amateur, mostly a woman, in the style of Miss Marple.
Yeah.
And I cut my teeth on a very young age with all the Poirot and all the Miss Marple books, and I loved Miss Marple. And I loved the knitting and the the quite acerbic wit, and the fact that everything was always it went back to St Mary Mead, but I'm really enjoying them because. Yes, it's still crime, but it's more about the mystery. It's more about the puzzle. There's no swearing.
No.
There's no on-screen hanky-panky. It all happens, behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Although Alina does have a bit of a thing for the delectable Detective Inspector Richard Laidlaw. I found a photograph of somebody who I thought was quite delectable, but obviously that's only for my reference, not for anybody else's. So it's as I say, it's the police are involved in mine because obviously in modern days the police are going to have to be involved in a murder. And he keeps on telling her, look, Alina, don't get involved. Keep yourself safe. Leave this to the police, etc., etc. And she does, but
not.
Yes. Well, you see, people talk to her, and people come up with interesting snippets of information. And she works at the general practice. So she's involved with all of the nursing staff there, with the GPs. She works in the parish as well. She finds it quite difficult to sort of separate lines between being a district nurse and being a vicar.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But people will talk to her, and people will be quite comfortable talking to her. And she's a lovely, warm character that you'd want to sort of have a G&T with, or a piece of Victoria sponge. I mean, it's doing quite well in cozy culinaries, but it's not much cooking. But there's an awful lot of eating apparently.
Cozy animal, I should think, as well. If there's a cat involved.
Yes, not doing so well in cozy animal, but because she's a woman, because she's a vicar. I've got them in the women's Christian fiction and the Christian suspense fiction, and they do very well in those categories. And I've got the third one almost done, and I've started outlining the fourth one.
I was going to say, is this going to be more of a long? Is this going to have more longevity than the others?
I don't know. I mean, I see sort of maybe 6 or 7 books in this mystery, in this series, just as I sort of wind up the romance, because I can't write romance to save my life. But I'm trying to put a very clumsy romance into this between Alina and the detective. There's also, she has a friend, Major Noel Fitzgerald. He's quite keen on her too, but she knows that when he touches her on the forearm or anything, there's no electric spark. Whereas when Richard touched her hand, she dropped one of her favourite Beach Hut mugs. And she's very upset about it, and she's put it on the Welsh dresser, tucked it behind a picture, because she can't bear to throw it away, because it's got that memory of that time and him touching her hand.
Okay, so there's a little bit of romance, like there is in mine, actually. My sleuth gets married and we still carry on churning out more books because people love them. I thought 3 would be enough, but actually I'm now writing the 11th, so you never know. You might be sitting here in a year's time. Yeah, I've got Lady Marjorie as well.
Yeah.
And
So-
Carlos Jacobi, actually, I've got a mail.
Oh, right. Okay. So
In
you
fact,
really,
he's
you've really
Rachel's
expanded.
love interest.
Mm-hmm.
But his books are more crime fiction. As I
Mhm.
mean, they are still cozy in that they're clean and the murders go off, but they're slightly grittier. And when I say
Mhm.
slightly, I mean really slightly
Yep.
grittier than the others.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. So we
what
think
comes
7.
afterwards?
Yeah. What's next?
I'm outlining another series because the Roaring Twenties seems very popular at the moment.
Oh,
So I'm just outlining a series at the moment with a character called Lady Gale Summer.
you're fiddling with your mic again.
Oh, sorry. I am so sorry. I'm
I'm
I'm so sorry.
right
I'm
here.
such a bad person. I'm a little fidgeter. Shall I? I'll get myself a
Hold
safety
a
pin.
stress ball or something, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got one of those. I've got
Yeah.
a nice pair of dressmaking scissors.
Yeah. Well, no, don't
Um,
hold those. Not when you write crime.
So I've got an idea of some of the murders already. When I was researching for the Eastwold series, I went to the Southwold Brewery, and they were talking about how you could be overcome when you're cleaning out the tuns, which is where they make the beer, the big barrels they make the beer in, that you could be overcome by the fumes. Well, that doesn't happen now because obviously nobody's inside the tun cleaning out the mess that's left after the brewing process. But if you take it back, and the 1920s was 100 years ago. So if you take it back 100 years, then that's another way of potentially murdering someone by having them overcome by the fumes in the beer tun. So I've got that. It's all about the bright young things. Cocaine becoming used more often. I've got a castle that has been entailed and is now no longer entailed, and Lady Summer inherits it. But there is a person who thinks that she shouldn't have inherited it, and he's keen on.
So who's your protagonist?
Lady Gale Summer.
Right.
And I haven't decided if she's got a dog yet or not.
So an aristocratic lady like my Lady Marjorie, but my Lady Marjorie is contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, she has to have a dog. Big old house. You do. The only thing about writing animals in is you have to remember to feed them.
Yes.
Walk them and occasionally toilet them.
Yes. Yeah. More so with dogs. I mean, I'm constantly having Elena rushing back to feed Thalia. One of the clues in Literary Murder is about the cat flap, and Thalia keeps batting on the cat flap to sort of alert her mistress to this clue that her mistress is blatantly ignoring. So yeah, there's lots of feeding of cats going on. But yeah, as you say. And then of course, if she goes away for a couple of days, somebody has to look after Thalia. So so you've got to keep all of those things in mind. Unfortunately, I've had cats and dogs, so
yeah, me too. And that's what editors are for, to pick you up on those. You forgot to feed the cat. I know when I wrote my first Carlos Jacobi, and the dog got injured because it was it went under the bed, and it basically got one of these old bed springs, and it got caught in it. And Carlos was there. Obviously there was a find under there, which is why the dog went under there to tell him that there was something under the floorboards in this house. And I think it was my proofreader, actually, rather than my editor, picked me up and said, "You forgot to check how the dog was." I mean, I did later. He sent him to the vets, but he to be a compassionate owner, he would have needed to check the dog.
He would have needed,
earlier.
like instantly, really.
yeah. So I had to go back and check on how the dog was. But that's why we have these people to remind us, because you get so wrapped up in the story and the mystery and the clues that sometimes you forget the little basics that people are going to think, he's not a very caring owner, is he? Didn't even check whether the dog was bleeding or not. Until they got home and it could have collapsed.
It could have collapsed, could have bled to death. And that's why I like to call it independent publishing rather than self, because it isn't just me. I have a cover designer. I'm able to do my own formatting, which is great. But I have a developmental editor, I have a proofreader. And I get help with the marketing side of things. I do ads on Amazon, and I'm okay at spreadsheets, but if I wasn't, I would have to have somebody to do that analysis for me. So I know they say it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise a book as well. There's a team of you all working together.
And that applies whether you're traditionally published or independently published. There's still always a team there, isn't there? The only thing about independent publishing is you have more control over the process.
Definitely.
And you can write a lot quicker without it going backwards and forwards to goodness knows where. Before it comes back, and
you have much more control. You have artistic control. You have a degree of editorial control. When I was writing my debut, I met so many authors who hated the cover of their book, hated the new title that it had been given, and I'm a control freak. There's no way I could have coped with any of that. But I've worked 20 odd years as a project manager, so it's a different project. Each book is a different project, but it's still using those same skills, which have come in very handy.
Because it's after all, it is a business. Okay, so you're going to. Is Cassie Rush going to still be the author of the 1920s cozies?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're not going to have yet a third name, are you?
No. I think being outsold by one name is enough. I don't think I want to be outsold by two. Yeah. It's good actually that your cozies have taken off. I mean, not good for the other series, but obviously it is good that people are warming to the premise and the characters of your new series. I've been very pleased with just 2 books out, so it's made a huge difference. Yeah.
So where can we're about coming towards the end of this interview. So where can people find you as Caroline Goldsworthy and as Cassie Rush?
I'm on Amazon. I'm thinking of going wide with the anglo-saxon murder mystery, but at the moment, most of my income comes from Kindle Unlimited page reads, so I can't afford to move away from those. But I think I could go wide with the other one. And I went to a conference, a workshop in Bath recently, run by Orla Ross and Joanna Penn. And that was talking about lots of different ways that you could distribute books, because obviously, although the ebooks are all on Amazon, they don't control the paperback. So I can start selling those through Shopify, but that's just something that I'm looking into at the moment. There were so many different options open at that conference. It was quite overwhelming.
Okay. And of course, I take it you use Ingram Spark to sell paperbacks as well?
Yeah. I haven't, as I was saying to you before we came on, I haven't done paperbacks for the Alina Merricott stories just yet. But I am in the process. I'm having a few technical issues with photographs. But I wanted to use my own, so
Yeah. Okay. And what about audiobooks? Do you have any audiobooks?
Not at the moment, but this is something that was quite interesting. I was listening to a webcast done by Findaway Voices, interviewing Sarah Rossett, who's one of the sort of more leading American cozy mystery writers, and she was saying that her cozy mystery audible books don't sell too well because they're more the people who want to sort of sit down and read a book, whereas she's finding audible books tend to be more people who are moving around, doing something, doing running, gardening, stuff like that.
I'm smiling because I've sold 36,000 audiobooks.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I don't know what they're talking about, because actually audiobooks are very popular.
Oh, you're talking about... See, I listen to audiobooks when I'm on a long drive. So I drove down to Bath recently, drove down to Bristol where I met you. And I listened to an audiobook on the way. I listen to them at bed at night. I put it on for sort of half an hour and drift off whilst listening to my audiobook. As soon as it stopped, I wake up again.
Yeah, a lot of it is about finding the right narrator for the book. It might maybe she's not found the right narrator, or maybe she's not marketed them
I honestly don't know.
And actually, the majority of subscribers to this channel listen to my audiobooks on YouTube, because I put a few of them up for free because I'm so nice like that.
You're lovely.
And they love, most people anyway, love the audiobooks. I sell a lot of audiobooks, and sometimes people nowadays go between the ebook and the audiobook, particularly as they can get the audiobook so cheap on Amazon. If you buy the ebook and it's like McDonald's, do you want fries with that? They say, do you want the audiobook at this price? And it's a fraction of the cost of a normal audiobook. And a lot of people go in for that. And certainly people who spend a lot of time in front of a screen like we do. I listen to way more audiobooks nowadays than I do reading books, because my eyes are too tired.
Yes.
And particularly with ebooks. I mean, I like print still. Although nowadays I need reading glasses. But the joys of getting past 25.
Or maybe 30.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'm over 40 now. And some. But yeah, so yeah, audiobooks. I think audiobooks are much, I'm sure you heard that at that conference, because Joanna Penn is a big advocate of audiobooks.
It wasn't Joanna Penn. It was, yes, I'm glad I wasn't on camera, because I think my jaw just fell open at that. And I found it very, very hard to believe. But it's something that I will get around to looking at. It's just the initial cost. I think once I've
they're expensive to produce. Yeah, they are really expensive to produce initially, and I for one wouldn't go down the royalty share route, because I see it as a future investment rather than wanting to share the royalties for X number of years. So, Okay, so they may be on the agenda. Paperbacks for Cassie Rush are on the agenda. New series is on the agenda. But in the meantime, we can look forward to book 3, which is called again
On the Stroke of Death. And
we will end our interview on the stroke of death. Thanks ever so much, Caroline, for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been my absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good luck with this series.
And good luck with yours as well. And you'll be pleased to know I'm not going on a cruise anytime soon.
Don't tell me my books have put you off cruising.
No, I'm going to Vegas instead.
Oh, are you? Oh, now there are quite a few cozy mysteries set in Vegas, and I love those.
Right.
So you'll probably get plenty of ideas.
Possibly,
out there.
yeah. I'm there for a conference, but I'll be there a few days before and a few days after.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Speak to you again soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Caroline Goldsworthy, aka Cassie Rush, for her Cozy Mystery series. Thanks again for listening to the show, and we'll see you next week with another episode.